world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive, we're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades.
Welcome to the Red Pill Sports Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Okay, guys, so we got a show for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Dallas Cowboys and the injury to Dak Prescott. We're going to talk some about the rule change for no-gi in IBJJF. Heel hooks and reaping will be allowed in 2021. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Jorge Masvidal and some of his social commentary on Twitter and whether or not ESPN will, show him the same kindness they show Braun, or if they'll completely ignore him or demonize him. We'll see. And then lastly, why you should never apologize to the SJWs, particularly in the Twitterverse. We're going to talk about Tony Dungy and his apology that personally I don't think he should have made. But let's go ahead, strap in, and let's get on with the show. Okay, let's get into this segment. So, if you're watching any NFL this week, or you even turned on any NFL this morning, you probably found out that Dak Prescott was injured, pretty serious injury. Most likely will keep him out the rest of the season. If things are super, fall into place, maybe 6 weeks, he might be out. I mean, and that's if every single thing is the absolute best case scenario, everything to how serious the fracture is, how serious the dislocation was, how successful the surgery is, and how amazingly quick he will heal, as well as, how all the PT, physical therapy goes. So if all those things fall into the right category, which is mostly unlikely, there's a slight chance he could be back sometime this season, but most likely he is out for the entire season. So, feel bad for Dak. He's a pretty good guy. Do feel bad for him that this happened. But let's get into some of the other aspects of what this means for the Dallas Cowboys and for Dak Prescott. Let's take the contrarian view. Okay, first and foremost, I did tweet at Des Bryant, because Des Bryant did tweet right after something about how Jerry Jones and the Jones family need to take care of Dak and make sure he is taken care of money-wise, even though he was hurt. I could not disagree more with Des Bryant. That is a ridiculous statement on Dez's part. I'm not even going to get into how divisive that is, and this is part of the reason why probably Des was let go, why Jerry Jones probably had enough of Des Bryant. While Des can be a spectacular teammate and very raw, he also tends to put his 2 cents into things where it doesn't belong, and he wants to see things from only one perspective, and that's just who Des is, right? Des is Des. Here's a problem with Dez's comment, okay? Besides it being divisive and starting to divide the locker room, the Dallas Cowboys offered Dak Prescott a long-term contract. They offered him a very fair long-term contract. It would have put him in the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the league and would have set him up for a very nice future. Dak Prescott and his agent decided that they were going to turn that contract down and gamble on themselves. That's what happened. Okay, so First of all, I do think Jerry Jones and the Jones family will take very good care of Dak Prescott. I think that they will continue to ensure he gets paid. They will continue to make sure that he gets the best medical treatment, all those things. Okay, so I'm not saying that I don't think that they will or that that will happen or that he'll just be discarded and that'll be the end of that. That being said, I don't like the way Dez comes at it. And for anybody else to sit here and use any kind of shaming tactics or any kind of, you know, guilt tripping in order to say, well, see, the Dallas Cowboys should have paid Dak. Let's keep in mind that Dak turned down a couple of massive contracts, okay? A couple of massive contracts he turned down. Contracts that would have made him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. This also does not change my personal opinion of Dak, and it's not going to change my opinion of Dak as far as the quality of quarterback he is. He is a solid B plus quarterback. I've said that before his injury. I'm going to say that post his injury. He's not going to become legendary status in my mind simply because he suffered an injury. Okay, I'm not going to go back and rewrite history of what I said or what I think so that I can be perceived as a good guy and that I care about Dak. Look, I care about Dak. He's a human being. He got hurt. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad. It's, you know, unfortunate that these things sometimes happen to athletes, especially young athletes that look like they still have room to grow. Okay? That being said, they do happen. And it doesn't change what their performance was before the injury happened. Okay? It doesn't change my perspective. It doesn't change my opinion. So, you know, this is one of those things where, again, this was on Dak as far as the money goes. As far as whether or not this means something for his future or doesn't mean anything for his future and getting paid and having a secure future financially as far as football is concerned, this is not on Jerry Jones. This is not on Stephen Jones. It is, in fact, on Dak Prescott and the decisions that he and his agent made. Okay? They made the decision that they would play under the franchise tag. They made the decision that they were going to turn down contracts. That's what they wanted to do. Okay? It is what it is. It happens. It does show, though, just how intelligent Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are running the Dallas Cowboys. And what do I mean by that? Okay? They look at the data. They are starting to run the Dallas Cowboys more like actual general managers than running them like fans. Part of the biggest problems with the Dallas Cowboy franchise is that Jerry Jones runs the Dallas Cowboys at times like he's a fan, more so than like a GM. Over the past 5 to 10 years, that has changed dramatically. Okay? They looked at the data. They saw that Dak Prescott was a B plus quarterback that maybe has a ceiling of a solid A quarterback, and that his best games, he's had one, maybe two games where he played A plus games, truly A plus games. They knew that Dak is a physical quarterback, that Dak holds the ball at times to make the play, that he scrambles around to make plays. They knew that Dak would take hits. He's not a get rid of the ball quickly, fall down easily quarterback. And that's not a knock on Dak. That's just who he is. They knew that giving Dak Prescott the type of Patrick Mahomes money that it seemed that he and his agent were holding out for was not a good idea. Why? Because of things like this. Because of injuries, because of depth on the roster, because of all the other pieces around the quarterback position. Okay? So, turns out Stephen and Jerry were right. Not only does it turn out that Stephen and Jerry were right, but let's also look what this means for the Dallas Cowboys down the line. This means that most likely, if Dak is offered a contract, it's going to be right back to the same level that it was before, meaning that most likely Dak Prescott will probably sign that contract. If he's offered the contract, he will most likely sign that contract, and this sets up the Dallas Cowboys very nicely into the future. Why does this help the Cowboys? Now, I'm going to say something, and we'll get back to it maybe later on in the show, but I agree with something that Tony Dungy said that he later got flack for, but this could have been a blessing in disguise for the Dallas Cowboy franchise. Okay? What I mean by that is that now Dak is not going to command the giant salary that he would have had he had a stellar year. You could already see the media hype train behind Dak. Even though the offense had turned over the ball a ton of times, Dak had been sacked multiple times. He had thrown picks. He had thrown a pick six, I believe. You know, all these other little things that were adding up on Dak that were just being ignored. Okay, the media was there trying to help make sure that Dak got his contract. Everything was all positive about how amazing Dak. Oh, look at all the yards. Look at all this. Look at all that. Without the context of what was actually happening on the offensive side of the ball. Okay? So, the Cowboys were going to be in a position where most likely, if the year would have continued in this way, regardless of what the record was, that they would have to offer Dak more money. What would that have meant? That would have meant we would have continued to see the Cowboys in the form that we saw them in the last 4 to 5 games, as far as on defense, shorthanded, no Van Der Esch, right? You would continue to see them missing pieces because they couldn't afford to pay all of the pieces that they will need to make a run deep into the playoffs. They just wouldn't be able to afford that. Further, let's look at how smart Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones were for going out and signing a good backup quarterback. Andy Dalton is a more than capable backup quarterback. More than capable. And you see, in the future, had they paid Dak, the idea that you could bring in a capable backup quarterback and still win in the league is slim to none when you overpay your starting quarterback, because it diminishes the price range that you have for your backup quarterback. What does that also mean? It also means that you cannot pay your running backs, your wide receivers, your linemen the same way you would like to. So you don't have weapons on the field for the backup quarterback. That makes his job much, much harder. Luckily for the Cowboys, this is not the situation. The reality is that Dalton has a ton of weapons. This set of weapons that Andy Dalton has, okay, is probably one of the best sets of weapons Andy Dalton has ever played with. Ever. Okay? The running game with Pollard and Elliott, you have an amazing running game to support Andy Dalton. This is exactly how the Cowboys need to return to play. Now, Tony Dungy said that it was maybe a blessing in disguise because it forced them to go back to their roots or back to their run the ball first mentality. That's part of why it was a blessing in disguise. The next reason why it was a blessing in disguise is, like I said, now you're looking at, of course, what this means for the future financially and what it means for the salary cap and being able to retain talent. It might be a blessing in disguise. Further, This could also be a blessing in disguise for the Dallas Cowboy team for this year. Whether or not you like Dak Prescott or you dislike Dak Prescott, or you're like me and you think he is a B plus quarterback, or you're like others that think that he's the GOAT and that he was the GOAT the minute he stepped onto the field. Okay, no matter what spectrum you're on, I think that everybody can agree that the players on the Dallas Cowboys roster love Dak Prescott. You saw this team respond to losing Dak. It seemed to bring the team together. The defense started to play better. The offense looked like it started to try to come together to support Dalton and to switch gears and protect their backup quarterback. Seemed like they started to take the game much more seriously. It seems like it gave the team much more urgency. Now, why would that matter? Here's the long and short of it. If you look at the Cowboys' losses and you look at the missteps that have been happening on the field, a huge chunk of those are discipline and attention to detail. Going all the way back to focus, mindset. That generally is the coach's job. Mike McCarthy has done a very poor job getting this team mentally ready to play football games. So, with the Dak injury, this has given them focus. The unfortunate part, where this could be a curse for the Dallas Cowboys, okay, is that because of that focus, if this team continues to rally and to be focused around the idea that, hey, our field general went down, it's our fault, or it's on us, we need to focus now, and we need to make sure we look good for him, and that, these and these things, and it keeps them focused. It could hide a huge problem in the coaching staff, because that would mean that these players are self-focused and self-motivated rather than coach-focused and coach-motivated, meaning that when this tragedy wears off, when this loss wears off, they could lose focus again. And so it could be hiding a handicap of the coaching staff. So that is a curse that could be coming with this as well. But that's what we got, guys. Really, really sad for Dak. Unfortunately, it looks like we will not get to see him mature through this season. Looks like we're going to have to wait until next season to see how well he's matured. And of course, any kind of injury like this, in my mind, always seems to set a quarterback back a couple of weeks of regular season football as far as maturity level, like a half a season or so. So it's almost like he'll be starting at the beginning of this season all over again, right? So it's going to be tough for him. And I really hope he comes back and he looks better than ever. But it is what it is, guys. And we're going to talk a little bit about that Tony Dungy comment and exactly what is wrong with the Twitterverse. All right, man. That's it for this segment. We're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, guys. Time to move on to our next segment. Assuming that you are in the world of jiu-jitsu and that is how you found our show, you may or may not have heard, I'm betting on you have heard, that it looks like the IBJJF will start to allow reaping and heel hooks in 2021. So, what does this mean? Well, this means that, first of all, let's talk about it. From what I have read, what I understand, what I've gathered here is this will be in the no-gi divisions only. It will not be in the gi division. So looks like they're going to experiment with it in the no gi division and possibly allow it in the gi division at some other time. It also is at brown and black belt levels. So we're not talking about purple belts and blue belts heel hooking each other. This is going to change the game in IBJJF schools significantly. You're going to see, I think, an explosion of names in IBJJF. All of a sudden, people are going to look like they're just amazing. So, the thing with allowing heel hooks and what that's going to do to IBJJF, of course, first thing most people are thinking of is the Danaher Death Squad. And, you know, are they going to start to enter IBJJF tournaments, particularly to fight no gi? And my immediate inclination is to say absolutely. You know, why wouldn't you? You've dominated every other no gi tournament format that allows heel hooks at the highest level, that allows reaping at the highest level, and now we're going to allow it in IBJJF. And you know, I don't know why the Danaher Death Squad would not take advantage of that. I don't know. I mean, that would just give their team more notoriety. I also believe that part of the reason why the IBJJF changed this policy and why they went ahead and adopted this is directly due to John Danaher's teaching style of leg locking. If you've ever bought the Danaher leg locking DVD from BJJ Fanatics, let me tell you a little bit about it if you haven't. Essentially, one of the opening things that John kind of talks about is the fact that, you know, it used to be that leg locks were one of those things that were a last-ditch effort if things weren't working, that there wasn't a whole lot of systematic use of leg locks. In other words, let's talk about a more, and I believe John actually uses this particular analogy himself. If you talk about more traditional IBJJF rule set, you know, you have different positions that score you points because there are different positions of hierarchy, right? Of course, you have guard, you have side mount, you have knee on belly, you have mount and back control. And these different positions give you different points, and they are at different levels of hierarchy. In other words, some positions are more valuable than others. And then the reason why they're more valuable than others is because of the nature of being able to attack from those positions. So, for instance, of course, being in somebody's closed guard, there's not a whole lot of ways to attack them when you're in closed guard in a grappling match. When you get to side control, that opens up more attacks, gives you more control over your opponent. There's a systematic way to attack for Kimuras, Americanas, arm locks, chokes from side control, similar from mount and similar from back, right? So it used to be with leg locks that, you know, there was no systematic hierarchy of positions. One position, you know, one leg entanglement versus another leg entanglement, it didn't really matter. People just, you know, kind of looked at every position the same. It was a leg entanglement, and, you know, if you could get the heel hook or you could get, you know, the toe hold or whatever, awesome. If you could get the knee bar, awesome. But there was no real system in place, right? Well, with the advent of John Danaher's teaching style, he developed a system of hierarchy, right? So it goes through all the different leg entanglements and how you want to progress from one leg entanglement to a different variation, to a different variation, to a different variation, so that essentially you get to the equivalent, I guess you could call it, of the mount, but with a leg entanglement. I think it's this systemization of attacking the legs that has not only um, given the Danaher Death Squad a advantage when it comes to the leg locking system, but also the reason why you see them be able to apply leg locks, particularly heel hooks, and that there have been very few serious injuries caused by uh, his students, right? I mean, they're not causing a whole lot of damage to each other. They're not causing a whole lot of damage to their opponents. They're catching these and they're getting a tap before any damage is done, kind of illustrating the fact that these can be done in competition safely. That when you have this system, it seems like this system has led to control when it comes to applying the submission, because you're no longer grabbing it in a desperation move. You're no longer just biting down and hoping for the best. There's actually a step-by-step process, and when you have the leg trapped and when essentially you're just going for the submission. Now you can think of this as like being in spider web, right? When you're in spider web, reason why we probably don't see a whole lot of uh, elbows blown out when somebody gets to spider web position is because we've practiced the position so many times. We know that we are just steps away, separating the hands and extending the arm. That's all we are away from getting the arm bar. So there's no desperation of just ripping away, right? Now, to finish the armbar, there's a whole, you know, slew. There's a whole slew of ways. Everybody has their preferred way they like to do it of separating the hands and, getting to the armbar finish. Well, very similarly, when it comes to the heel hooks and Danaher's system, when you have the leg completely entangled, you have the dominant leg position. Now it's just a matter of, okay, I have to isolate the foot that I want, um, go through it, grab my grip, I'm there, apply the pressure, and it's done. If he kicks off here, I take this instead of that, and bam, leg lock, right? So I think that this has really been due to the fact that Danaher has systematized uh, a leg locking system, and the fact that you see so many of his students applying them without hurting and injuring seriously their opponents, right? And so I think this is really, really good for IBJJF. Um, I think that this is good for jiu-jitsu in general, and this is going to help down the road. Now, the other reason why I really like this idea and that I believe it's good for jiu-jitsu is the fact that a ton of IBJJF guys or a ton of people train at IBJJF styled schools. And now, at some point in their journey, probably around purple belt, they're going to have to start to learn these positions. Okay? They're going to have to start teaching them, and they're going to have to start to learn them. I think this is super important, especially given how MMA has started to progress. And the fact that, we see so few leg lockers that are good at it, right? That are good at it in MMA. We see Ryan Hall, he's caught probably the most heel hooks in the UFC, if you include his time on The Ultimate Fighter, and he's done it at speed. So that's a big feather in his cap, and a feather in the cap of leg locking. That, you know, we keep hearing like, oh, this wouldn't work. It doesn't work in MMA because of this position, that position, yada yada. Okay, how leg locks won't work if you do X, Y, and Z. But it seems that they become a tool in the toolbox, just like everything else. Pulling guard. You know, you can't say pulling guard doesn't work. I mean, pulling guard can work. When it doesn't work is when um, it's been boiled down to this is your last hope, right? That's when it doesn't work. Um, you can't say that takedowns don't work. I mean, takedowns obviously work, right? Grappling obviously works. What limits grappling and fighting styles is when they become your only tool, and then your opponent, particularly in MMA, is then able to defend that because they are versed and they are trained in that art, so they know enough to defend, and they know that that's the thing that they have to defend. There's not a whole lot of threat from anything else. And I think that that's how it's become in MMA when it comes to submissions. I think that, you know, it's come to a point in MMA where uh, pretty much people know if I defend the armbar, the Kimura, um, the head and arm, and the triangle, and maybe the rear naked choke and defend my back, that there's maybe about 5 or 10 submissions I'm really concerned about. And if I really work hard, I wouldn't even say 10, right? I think that was 5. 5 submissions that if I really focus my defense on and how to recognize when one's trying to be put in and how to escape that position, how to defend that position, I really don't have to worry a whole lot about any other positions and submissions, right? I don't. I mean, that covers those 5. I think I mentioned, I think it was 5. I think that was, you know, that's like 88%, 90% of the submissions you're going to see, right? It just is what it is. If you stay away from those, you're good. What does that mean? It means that everything, all of those submissions happen from the waist up. You see some of these lazy up kicks sometimes, or the way that people lazily put their foot out and kind of, they're not actually kicking their opponent off, but they're, you know, kind of just having it flop out there. Can you imagine what would happen with a really good leg locker? A black belt, an IBJJF black belt that's been leg locking in no-gi tournaments from brown belt through up until his black belt. Now you're going to leave that leg, kind of that foot just flopping around out there, being lazy with it. It's probably going to get ripped off, right? So I think this is going to change the game, not only for IBJJF and Jiu-Jitsu, but it'll change the game when it comes to MMA, and it's going to help evolve the combat arts altogether. I think this is a great idea. You're going to get some pushback. You know you will, from schools who are not going to participate, or, you know, I guess the only other option that could happen, hopefully not, but is that it may kill the no-gi division of IBJJF. People just refusing to compete. But anyhow, we're going to see what it looks like. I am looking forward to seeing some guys who generally compete IBJJF, and they did compete no-gi, to see if they continue to compete well the death squad starts to enter into those tournaments. And I'm wondering if this means that the IBJJF is going to require that you compete in both gi and no gi to qualify. I don't know. I've always had the feeling that they didn't really care for some of the that they're a bit controlling, right? A bit controlling. They want to have authority, and so didn't really like some of these other schools being able to come in. So we're going to see what happens here. But I think this is super exciting and super fun to see. And anyhow, we'll go ahead and see what it looks like come 2021. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up this section and we'll move on. All right, guys, for this segment, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jorge Masvidal and some of his social commentary and political commentary that's kind of coming out right now. So apparently, Jorge is going to be joining Donald Trump Jr. on a day-long Fighters Against Socialism bus tour across Florida. I guess this was just this past Saturday. That they're going to do a couple of rallies, and they're also going to be doing a rally at the American Top Team, where a couple, I guess, number of fighters are expected to join. Jorge goes on after retweeting Ariel Helwani's report about it. He goes on to tweet the anti-communism bus tour will be arriving at a city near you. Hashtag super necessary. So I wanted to talk about this because here's the unfortunate truth. The unfortunate truth is, while Ariel Helwani does work for ESPN currently, he's one guy. He is not the main guy. So I'm very curious to see. And generally, I do not watch ESPN, mostly because it's a bunch of talking heads and echo chambers that they all say the same thing. I think they have all the same research people that go out and do all their research and give the opinions to the talking heads, and oh, flip a coin, do you want to be on this side or this side? This is what we're going to talk about, this is what we're going to debate, this is the stance you're going to have. Because it seems very echo chambery, right? If you turn on one show to the next show to the next show, it's not like you ever get a new story or get a new opinion or some new take. It's pretty much, a regurgitation of the last opinion show you just watched. So that's why I don't really watch ESPN. However, one of the things I do notice about ESPN is have become extremely left leaning. They have become extremely woke, and they seem to push the left narrative quite a bit politically. They prop up a lot of what LeBron James has to say, even though LeBron James, if we're going to be honest, many times when LeBron opens his mouth, he says things that are outlandish. He says things that are over the top, that nobody should take seriously, because if you're being intellectually honest, they're just laughable positions to have. So I'm wondering, and I did tweet this the other day, but I'm wondering, how is ESPN, the UFC partner, how are they going to treat Jorge Masvidal having social political commentary? Are they going to treat it and prop him up the same way that they propped up LeBron James and every political statement he has to make? Are they going to talk about how Jorge Masvidal has a reason why he is, not going to be a leftist, why he is anti-socialism, why he is anti-communism? Okay, are they going to talk about that, and are they going to prop him up and talk about how he knows what he's talking about because of his life and the life that he's lived and who his parents are? Because this is essentially what they say when LeBron wants to expound on police brutality. Essentially, we all know that LeBron's never experienced any police brutality or any oppression in his life. I mean, the kid been catered to since he was probably about 12 years old, because of his basketball prowess. He's been catered to and has led an extremely blessed and abundant life since the age of 12. So he really has no idea what it is to be oppressed. But we allow him to speak on it, and society allows him to speak on it and take him seriously, because they say, okay, well, maybe he never has, but where he comes from, where his family comes from, what his family's experience was, leading up to who he is today, that's how he understands it. He understands it through generational understanding, right? Well, then in this case, Jorge Masvidal then should be paid the same respect as understanding the problems and issues with socialism and communism. Or, as I assume, they're going to do one of two things. They'll either completely ignore Jorge, and none of the talking head shows will talk about Jorge Masvidal and his support of the Donald Trump Jr. Fighters Against Socialism bus tour, or they will downplay it, make him sound like he's a goofball, like he's an idiot, listen to him talk, he's not even educated. They'll play it some kind of way like that. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. Did you see how he said communism, but the bus tour is anti-socialism? He doesn't even know that socialism and communism aren't the same thing. Blasity, blasity, blah. Okay? Which, those of us who know that that's a semantics game. It's a semantics game that the left likes to play. Just like the whole democratic socialism versus socialism. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's still socialism. The outcome's still the same. You know, ridiculous. But we're going to see just how much attention they give Jorge Masvidal through this week. So I will be turning on ESPN from time to time, tuning in to hear what they have to say, see, catch a couple of shows here and there, see if Jorge comes up at all. But I think this is fantastic. I applaud Ariel Helwani for reporting on this. I have a feeling that ESPN is not going to be happy that he reported on it because, of course, it doesn't serve the political narrative that they've been pushing for quite some time now. ESPN is on the verge of having to make major cutbacks, and I really think that, beyond the sports thing, right? Because I do understand that when the sports were gone, there's not as many people tuning in during the lockdowns. There wasn't as many people tuning in to ESPN because what are you going to tune in for? But I really feel like what has compounded the loss of viewership is ESPN's continued left leaning, unabashedly, completely leaning to the left politically. Okay. Getting rid of and censoring and trying to muzzle its own reporters that were not going to go with the left-leaning agenda, which were some of their best reporters, which were really the people who were giving you the balanced view, which was making ESPN legitimate because it was not an echo chamber, right? That was keeping it from becoming a full and complete echo chamber. It's lost all of those guys. Okay? So, we'll see what goes on, but props to Jorge, props to Ariel Helwani. I really like to see when athletes speak up, and they say the unpopular thing, right? The thing that is not popular. Because let's face it, when all of the media and the social media crowd and the SJW Twitterverse, okay, is all on one side of the conversation and you take the other side, that's what bravery is. It's not brave to go along with, what everybody else is already saying. That's not brave. What's brave is to actually speak up and say, hey, I have a problem with where this conversation is going because of X, Y, and Z, and I don't agree with the masses here. Okay? So that's what's brave, and to report about it was also brave on Ariel's part. So I'm really digging this, and we'll check it out and follow the story and see what happens. All right, guys, that's what I got. We're going to do one last quick segment, and then we'll probably be out. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap this up looking at the tweet from Tony Dungy. I talked about it earlier when we talked a little bit about Dak, but on air, Tony Dungy said something to the effect of, I believe this was in Football Night of America, he said something to the effect of, this may have been a blessing in disguise because it forced the Cowboys to return to their identity of run the football first, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember all the rest of the quote, but apparently he caught some flack for it. And he came out and he apologized via this particular tweet. Blessing in disguise was a poor choice of words by me. It's not a blessing for Dak. What I meant was that for the Cowboys, the season is not over. Andy Dalton is a very capable, and changing the focus back to Elliott could help the defense, but I feel very badly for Dak. That was the end of it. Now, here's the problem, okay? I have no problem with Tony Dungy. None whatsoever. But if I were Tony Dungy's friend, brother, if I were his son, I would, go to him and I would say, look, don't apologize on Twitter and don't apologize for what you said. You said what you said, and it is what it is. Anybody who knows you, who really knows football and knows anything about Tony Dungy, knows that he's an upstanding guy. They know he's an upstanding guy. They know that he's not wishing any kind of ill will on Dak. They understand that he's talking in respects to football and the football team, and that's what he gets paid to do. And this is why it is a waste of time for you to apologize on Twitter, okay, or on any social media, anywhere, for anything you say or any joke that you make. This is why, okay? I'm going to just scroll down and read a couple of comments, and you're going to see why it is a complete waste of time, okay, for you to apologize as a sports person for anything that you do or say because you happen to be in the moment. He was on live TV. I mean, this is ridiculous. People have no idea. People who have never done this kind of work have no idea. They get to sit here and think about what they're going to say, and then they get to type it, and then, oh, it's too many characters. They get to delete it and then retype it. They have no idea. But let's go ahead and read. Cerritos Pastor. Tony, yes, it was a poor choice of words. Because clearly, Cerritos has never made a poor choice of words, especially while Dak was possibly in surgery. Thank you for owning it, but come on. Trying to justify it was just a bad idea. Or just bad an idea. I guess he's trying to say just as bad of an idea. But this guy has the ability, okay? This guy has the ability to think about what he's going to say, type it out, erase it, and retype it, and he still can't get his choice of words right, but he thinks he has the ability to judge Tony Dungy. What a schmuck. This is about a human's life. There are some things more important than the game. You know that. Are you kidding me? His job is to talk about the game and the impact to the Dallas Cowboys. His job in that moment was not to talk and wax poetically on how badly he feels for Dak Prescott. Do you think Tony Dungy doesn't feel bad for Dak Prescott? Do you think Tony Dungy, of all people, doesn't understand what Dak Prescott has gone through in this offseason, losing his brother to essentially depression? Do you not know who Tony Dungy is and his life story? I'm pretty sure you don't. If you think that you have the moral high ground to preach at Tony Dungy. So absolutely wasted time to apologize to somebody like this. These are the people that he's apologizing to. Leslie Estes. This man gave 100% every time he stepped on that field. He gave 100% to the organization. What does that have to do with Tony Dungy? What does that have to do with it being a blessing in disguise for the Dallas Cowboy team? There's a lot of guys who step out there and give 100%. And with all due respect, Mr. Dungy, I watch you every time you speak on the sport. It's not just about wins. It's not just about the wins. Clearly, this person has no idea what they're talking about. If they don't know who there's no way this Leslie Estes watches every single time Tony. Number one, it's just disingenuous. There's no way she's watching Football Night in America every single time it ever comes on. That's ridiculous. And every time Tony Dungy has ever spoken about the sport, period, like nobody could claim that. I don't even think Tony Dungy's wife has watched every single TV interview that Tony Dungy's done. But this lady has. Give me a break. Okay? This is what you call she's trying to give herself credibility in what she's saying because she just wants to criticize. And the reason why they're coming after Tony Dungy, if we're going to be 100% honest, is because he is a conservative leaning person, because he's a Christian. So they're going to come after him because he has very publicly voiced his Christian beliefs. Okay? This is why the Twitterverse is going to come after him. It has nothing to do with what he actually said. This man gave it all he had, and for what? To constantly be disrespected. To be constantly disrespected. Who disrespected Dak? Who disrespected Dak? So being honest and critical, that's disrespect now? Did anybody say that Dak sucked? Well, this was a blessing in disguise for the Cowboys because Dak was stinking it up. Is that what Tony Dungy said? Absolutely not. That's not what Tony Dungy said. Did Tony Dungy say even in the last couple of weeks, wow, Dak really looks like he's playing like crap. He couldn't throw his way out of a paper bag. Absolutely not. Tony Dungy did not say anything like that. So what is she even talking about? So those are the people you're apologizing to. Because the people who actually know who Tony Dungy is, I don't think anybody who knows anything about you question your intention. Dak is an amazing guy. He'll bounce back. Praying for him. Brad James, I know what you meant. Kara, we knew what you meant, coach. Don't let anyone give you grief for it. So there it is, guys. I mean, seriously. One word of advice. I'm sure Tony Dungy will never hear this, okay? I'm sure any other conservative-leaning person will never hear this. I hope that somebody like Jason Whitlock takes the time to reach out to Tony Dungy and explain to Tony Dungy, don't ever apologize. Don't ever apologize on social media for anything that you didn't do with ill intent. Why? Because it doesn't matter. Because the people who are going to be upset, it's not gonna make them not upset. Okay? They're not gonna take your apology and be like, okay, yeah, you're right, coach. Yeah, I understand. You're sorry. I'm sorry I got upset too. I know you're a better guy than that. And, you know, I knew that's not what you meant either. It's just in the moment and you're absolutely right. And, you know, and I'm sorry too. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to get on the morality high horse that they think that they own because of their political views. They think they own all of morality and that they get to sit up there and judge everybody else's morality. And they're still going to be ranting and raving because these people are miserable people. They're miserable people. And beyond being miserable people, they are also, okay, a good chunk of them two-faced hypocrites. Like, I cannot stress it enough. Some of these people, they have time to think about what they're going to say. They have time to write what they're going to say. They have the ability to delete it, come back to it. They have the ability to come back, edit it, right? But they still can't even get their words right. But they want to question the integrity of Tony Dungy and something he said, well, on live TV, and he was addressing what it meant to the team as far as wins and losses. That is what he was getting paid for. He was not getting paid for giving his commentary about what his feelings are about Dak Prescott and how sad he is that he's hurt. That's not what he was getting paid for in that moment. And for you to question that Tony Dungy, of all people, would not understand what it would be like to lose somebody, to know what Dak has gone through in his life, particularly in this last year, is disgusting and despicable. Because that just shows you really don't know Tony Dungy. But you want to pretend like you do so that you can get on your soapbox and feign outrage. Give me a break. Look, coach, if it was me, I would delete this tweet. Delete it. Who cares? Who cares? Don't worry about it. Coach, people who know you know you. And they know. The real fans who really have been watching you most of your career, listen to you talk most of your career, they know. All these fools, these people are just out looking for any reason to complain, to whine, to cry, to claim that somebody's being mean. Victim mentality. It's disgusting. All right, guys. That's all I got for this show. We're going to try and put something together, start doing a little bit more content throughout the week, maybe little tiny tidbits, things of that nature. And I say we as if I have a whole big old production crew, but as you've guessed, it's just me, myself, and I. So we will be trying to get out some more content throughout the week to you guys, and a couple other things that I find interesting or as they pop up. But that's what I got for this show. So remember, be practical, be purposeful, get fit with a purpose, guys.
Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive, we're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird. You're so stupid.